Hi, this is Eddie Hearn, and you're watching Lights Out.
Josh Buatsi wins the South London Derby and takes a step closer to a world title shot. Conor Benn comes through Peter Dobson, but we'll be asking the question, is Conor Benn really ready for an elite fighter? And 2024 is going to be the year where we crown an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It's not going to be on February 17th. This is Faisal Khan for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law. And this is podcast 72 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast. With me, as always, delighted to be joined by my main man, Mr. Mohsin Gulsher, aka Ron, looking very much dapper with his new hairstyle. Ronald, how are you, brother?
All good, very, very well, thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you, mate. You're looking high spirits. It was good to see you on Friday night as well. Good little catch up, and I love the drive in you of getting these podcasts done on a regular basis. It's really good to see, Ron, that you're on it now and that you're finally getting your money's worth out of Lights Out. Because let's be honest, Ron, you're on a full-time wage here. It's about time you brought more to this company, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, man. Really enjoy our boxing chats whenever I get the opportunity with you. So looking forward to a chat tonight as well.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about, but obviously before we do begin with today's podcast, just a few friendly reminders. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for all future Lights Out boxing content. And make sure you check out our sponsors, Spartans Law. And if you want to know more about Team Lights Out, our social media links are below in the description. And if you want to listen to this podcast on any of the audio platforms, again, links are below in the description. Ron, floor is all yours, my man. Let's begin with a quick fire question.
Okay, all right. It's a bit of a hypothetical one, but if you could go back in history, any fight, okay, I'm not talking about controversial, robbed, or anything like that. If you could change one result, boxing result, which fight would it be and why?
Oh, man. Oh, that's a tough one. That's a fucking tough one. A Ricky Hatton versus Floyd Mayweather. Because I was 18 at the time, and that was 2007, December. And that's when we really started getting coverage of press conferences and face-offs. And I think the build-up to that fight with Floyd coming into the UK with a United top on really sort of set the benchmark of just how big that fight was. But I was in Pakistan watching that fight, and I was gutted for Ricky Hatton. I was so confident that he was going to pull it off, that he was going to be the man to sort of dethrone Floyd Mayweather. But that's one fight I would like to go back in time and change the outcome, simply because of how big the fight, but simply because of how heartbreaking it was to see Ricky Hatton lose. What about you?
I mean, I had a few, but the one that was personal to me was Nazim Mohammed losing against Antonio Barrera.
Okay.
That was obviously, we enjoyed watching Naz, the antics. We see a bit of that in Ben Whittaker, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And that cut his career short. I mean, what could have been if he did come through that with that win. Could he have fought Morales? Could he have fought, there's so many other people in that division that he could have fought. And he was also rumored to be fighting against a young Floyd Mayweather. So that one was a heartbreaking one for me. But another one I would change, I mean, it's not my time period. It was probably Muhammad Ali in his last few fights. It was a shadow of himself. But if anyone you wanted to see go out and with a win and, with an amazing career that he had, it was Muhammad Ali. I think it was Trevor Berbick.
That's the one, yeah.
The one where I think it made Mike Tyson cry because, he was upset that his hero had lost. And is that the one that he got he goes, I'm going to get him for you. Is that Trevor Berbick or Larry Holmes?
I think it was Larry Holmes, but it was definitely his Muhammad Ali's final fight. But I agree with you on what you said about, I think the question is brilliant, honestly, and I agree with you. The answer to that question has really got to hit you. It's got to be a case of in boxing that it really has to hit you. And the Floyd Mayweather Ricky Hatton result did hit me a lot. You know, another one, Amir Khan, Lamont Peterson, that actually hit me a lot as well. With the way he got robbed out there. Fury Wilder one, another one that really hit me. But
yeah, no, that's why I was specific, not robberies, because obviously I think I've done that question before. But I was just thinking, if you could change one result, obviously it changes, you know, what happens afterwards. You know, for that particular fighter, that career, that would have been their defining fight. That would have been their swan song, or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, it's like a sliding doors kind of moment, in a, you know. So there's so many other probably memories you could think of, which you could. Another one I would think of is Frank Bruno when he lost against Mike Tyson.
Which one? One or two?
Two, I think it was.
Because I know in the first one he got quite a bit of success in one of the rounds.
Yeah, I just, you know, he just came
two.
up short again. You know, against someone like an animal like Mike Tyson. Yeah, so look, it's just, I think sometimes, you know, these losses are the making of some fighters. The one that you mentioned, with Ricky Hatton, that was kind of the start of the downfall, wasn't it, for him? You know, he wasn't the same anymore. Then obviously, look, you can't knock him because he went on to fight Pacquiao as well. So the two of the pound for pound list. So he wasn't ducking anyone. So yeah, like.
Well, to the viewers out there and to obviously the listeners on the audio platforms, you know, get involved with that question. Again, Ron, another brilliant question, and you've actually given me an idea for a special podcast that we're going to do at some point this week. But yeah, great question, guys. Get involved. Let's obviously start with today's first topic. And I told you, Ron, what did I say to you? I believe it was on podcast 68. The fight is not going to happen on February the 17th. I had a bad feeling, and unfortunately, we all got the news that we dreaded, that the Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk fight is off. Well, not off, it's been postponed till May. Fury suffered a cut at the back end of last week while sparring. The fight has now been pushed forward to May the 18th. So the fight is going to happen, but it's not going to happen on February the 17th. But a lot of backlash in regards to Fury picking up a cut. A lot of people saying that there's a conspiracy theory behind it. A lot of back and forth between Team Fury and Team Usyk. Ron, I mean, we met up on Friday. We discussed this. Now that you've had quite a few days to sort of digest what's happened with this situation, and you've seen the interview with Fury, Turkey Al Sheikh with Team Usyk, and you've obviously seen social media clips. What's your gut feeling right now in this situation between Fury picking up a cut in training and Oleksandr Usyk's team saying that there's a conspiracy theory behind it?
I was listening to an interview with Alex Krassyuk with Coogan on IFL.
Shout out IFL TV.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting take. You know, he was kind of alluding to the, you know, that conspiracy that you're referring to, that it was faked. Maybe, I mean, it kind of makes you think, how did he get that cut when they were wearing headgear, you know, head guards, and it was a horrible cut. I mean, there wasn't, I mean, that very brief footage that you posted in our group chat, you know, it's not much we can infer from that or how that came about, but apparently it was an elbow. Yeah, you called it right. You said, you know, you're not convinced it's going to happen until you see the ring walk on that night, you know. And I think karma's a bitch, man. I think for Fury, I mean, it was, but I can't remember, 2012 or something, when he was going to fight David Haye, and David Haye incurred a cut above his eye as well, which he had to pull out of, and you know, Fury didn't let him live that down and called him all sorts of names under the sun. Yeah, you know, and now the shoe's on the other foot. It's a disappointment, you know, like we were so really looking for it, for the undisputed heavyweight champion. You know, we're going to have to wait another, we've been waiting. We were hoping to get it in December, and now we're gonna get it in May. So that's 6 months. It's been pushed back half a year, and that's another 6 months that Fury's not fighting.
Well, we obviously had a lot to say about it in our WhatsApp group. We met up on Friday. We both gave our sort of opinions on it. And, I think Asif said, why would you have that such intense sparring?
Agreed.
A few weeks out before the fight. And luckily we caught up with George Groves, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, disappointing. It's is it just sod's law? Is it just the way it is? Fury gets cut. You can't dispute it. You've seen the pictures. There is a cut there. So, yeah, the fight gets postponed. I hope that they can go ahead with the show. I hope that they can make Usyk Hrgovic, get rid of that mandatory, keep Usyk busy. We get to see some high quality boxing. Whether Hrgovic fancies that on late notice or not, who knows? But hopefully they go ahead with the show. I think it's unlikely that we're going to see Fury, Usyk. If they reschedule it, when is that for? Is it for the end of this year? It might have been sort of now or never. So shame, because we looked like we was going to finally get one champion in the heavyweight division in his 4-belt era. But it's not to be.
Would you have, you were involved in big fights yourself throughout your career. How would you have approached those final few weeks in terms of your training camp? Would you have taken on sparring literally 2 weeks before the fight, or is it something you wouldn't have done at all?
Yeah, if you need the sparring, you take the sparring. I've had camps where I sparred up until a week before. You don't spar anticipating getting a cut, and you can't really train with fear of injury, because then you can't train to your full capacity. You won't be doing the hill sprints or the track sprints because you're worried about pulling a hamstring or a calf. You won't be sparring. You won't be doing pads because you're worried about hurting your shoulder or your hands or getting cut in sparring. So you can't have that mindset. You have to just get on with it. And sparring 2 weeks out, there's nothing with it. If the footage that I've seen, if that is the actual spar that was in question, who knows? I love conspiracy theory. Who knows? But Fury had a head guard on. They slow-moed it down and said he got caught with an elbow. It's a terrible cut. To get in sparring.
It's terrible quality of footage, though, considering the fact that into all these latest technologies with iPhones and Samsungs. It's terrible footage, though, isn't it, the way it's been recorded?
You're a media man. You got a camera. You should have been out there. We'd have had a better clip.
I'd have loved to have been out there.
The clip I saw, they shut it off before he takes his head guard off. We see the cut. It would be lovely to have seen the cut. Whose idea was that? Should have kept that rolling. Kept that rolling, would have been gold. But so. Yeah, it's a shame, but it's happened time and time again. In fact, it's happened to Fury when he was supposed to fight David Haye, and he gets cut in sparring. I think it was only a couple of weeks out from their scheduled fight, 2013 or whatever that was. So, who knows? But, it's a shame. He got cut pretty badly, didn't he? That was quite a few fights ago, really, wasn't it? It was a long time ago, so it's not a fresh wound. But these things happen, It's a shame. It's a shame for everyone involved. It's a shame for the fighters. Huge shame for Usyk, and for the promotion out in Saudi Arabia, because they've put a lot of energy into this, obviously, and they're trying to fit boxing into a limited time frame, because they've got a season that they adhere to, and boxing is doing that thing where it doesn't adhere to any rules. It fucking goes as it wants, and that might spell disaster, really, for these Middle Eastern fights.
George Groves, the man who loves the conspiracy theory. I won't keep you too long, George, but there were a few things said towards Tyson Fury from Oleksandr Usyk's manager, Alex Krasik, saying that it's a sign that you should retire. His other manager said, I completely forgot his name, but said that he probably got his bitch to hit him with a frying pan, and that he's scared to fight Oleksandr Usyk, and it's a fight he never really wanted. Just want to get your thoughts on those comments that were made towards Tyson, please, George.
If I'm Usyk's team, I'd probably say the same. He's got an element of humour to it. The Fury team definitely won't want to hear it, but it's to be expected, isn't it, from their team to say that. I've said before that I thought after the Ngannou fight, I said we might never see Fury fight again. And the way he's going, I think that still might be the case. Say he did actually knuckle down after the Ngannou fight. Say no, I'm getting myself in shape. I'm going to rectify this. I'm going to make it all count. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do it properly. And then he gets cut 2 weeks before. That's demoralising. He's missing out on putting in a good performance, missing out on being the undisputed unified one belt champion, and he's no doubt missed out on a mega payday. So that might be the end of Fury. Who knows? Only he will know, and maybe he doesn't even know now. Maybe he'll only know in time to come. But I'm glad they said something. I wouldn't. If they took it on the chin, then I would have been bitterly disappointed.
So that's what George Groves had to say. Now, guys, make sure you check out the full interview via our YouTube channel. Again, you'll see it in the Josh Buatsi Dan Azeez fight week playlist. But yeah, I asked George Groves a question, and I said that you're involved in huge fights in your career. Would you have sparred, especially with that high intensity, a few weeks before the fight? And he said yeah, and he also said that you'd go into those sparring sessions as if it was the actual fight. So I mean, if that's coming from a guy that's a former world champion, that's fought the likes of Callum Smith, Chris Eubank Jr., Carl Froch twice, and I'm pretty sure they were grueling camps, then, I don't think Tyson Fury has done anything wrong. But I get that fans are angry. I'm angry. You're angry. I'm glad I didn't book my tickets to go out there. But I don't know, like, there's just like a question mark hanging over it. I mean, I don't like how Team Usyk have approached it, but I'm just like you, Ron. I can't get over the fact that he's got a head guard on, and the footage is recorded, and it's like it's come from an old Nokia phone. There is just something to it that doesn't look right. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that there is a conspiracy theory, but
okay,
there's just something that does not look right about it.
All right, so you're not happy with the Usyk team, right? Let's say it was the other way around. Usyk got himself a nasty.
Now you're just playing devil's advocate, Ron.
No. But I'm just saying. I mean, how do you think Fury would have responded?
I reckon he would have said exactly the same thing. That's just Tyson Fury. I mean, look how he reacted to David Hayes.
You know what I mean? You can't blame.
No, I can't.
Postponed from December when they initially were going to fight to February. Now it's May. Like, for fuck's sake, they've been waiting. They've been in camp. He's been in camp for about almost 4 months now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2 weeks out. It was interesting to hear what Usyk, he goes how he responded when the news broke. He was like, "Look, I'm not surprised because I've read his book. I know what he's like. His psychological war.
Do you know what, Ron? I'll tell you one thing though. Yeah, Tyson Fury's team have had an absolute squeeze here, because that injury, that cut could have been a lot more long. That could have been a longer injury, if you know what I mean. Those cuts sometimes, Ron. Yeah, if you look at previous history in boxing when it comes to cuts, it could take up to 6 months to fully heal. That was a very nasty, deep cut. I mean, you look at it, you've seen the pictures of it. So I reckon they've had an absolute squeeze in pushing it to May.
2 months is that enough time for it to fully heal? And
no, what I'm trying to say is, Ron, is the
is it the pressure from the shake?
No, the damage that cut has caused, Ron. We were discussing it, and I said to you, maybe 6 months it could take before the fight happens, but 3 months now we've got to wait, and I don't think that's too bad. I don't think that's the worst outcome possible. But Ron, I don't want to stay on this topic too long because it is getting really, really annoying now. One final question before we move on: does this fight actually happen or not?
It's got to happen, man.
No, but it has to happen.
I know, but
just like Man United have to win a league title someday. But does the fight happen?
No. Look, you're right to question it, but you know what, man? If it's got to happen, right? I think I'm being desperate here. That surely, they've been teasing us for long enough now. I remember the first time this idea came about him facing Usyk when he beat the Chisora.
Yeah.
Where Joy Joyce who came to the ring, and the three of them were having this. that's when the idea was that seed was first planted. And when was that?
That was December 2022, Ron.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
I was at that fight when
Right.
Fury fought Chisora. That's how long ago it was.
So then, you're asking me the question: is it going to happen? I'm like, this is the worst. This is the biggest anti-climax ever. So if it doesn't happen, I've given up on boxing, man. And this will tarnish Tyson Fury's kind of legacy, in my opinion. So I hope it does. I hope he puts on, they get in the ring and they put on a great boxing fight. What the world wants to see, and undisputed with all the titles.
Well, do you know what? I had my take on it once, and my predictions came true. I'm not predicting to get second time round because I reckon it'll come true again. I'm going to move on anyway because we'll talk about last weekend's boxing action where Josh Buatsi defeated Dan Azeez in the undefeated South London light heavyweight clash. Was at the fight. It was a very, very good fight indeed. Very, very impressive fight. Josh Buatsi coming out on top in the end, and moves on to perhaps maybe a world title shot, maybe a big domestic showdown with the likes of Anthony Yard, maybe Callum Smith. Ron, thoughts on the fight, and thoughts on the performance of Josh Buatsi.
Look, you've got to give your hats off to both people. It takes two to tango, and I love that how Buatsi gave him his credit. At the end, that mark. I mean, the respect was always there. It was like the politest kind of back and forth between the two. No need, or obviously they're friends. I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was a really good fight. And I think I was hoping for Dan Azeez before, kind of to bring it home, but unfortunately that wasn't the case for him. But Buatsi showed his levels to this. He's fought at a higher level, and that showed. And Dan Azeez, he'll probably take a lot away from that fight, from that defeat. He did not do himself. He didn't embarrass himself. He did himself proud, and he gave a really good account of himself. But Buatsi was the better man that night, and better punches, better combinations. Got the two knockdowns in round 11. I think, I don't know whether you had it as a slip or not, but take nothing away from both fighters. I think that was a great, for British boxing, and we were really looking forward to it for a number of months, and we finally got it. And I really hope that this is the liftoff of Buatsi's career now, because it's been stalling for a number of years now. He's been spoke of highly as someone, from the GB Olympics days, but now we really want to see him push on, be it domestic fight, tear up with Anthony Yard. There's obviously other, great British dust-ups that you can have as well. Because I think Bivol and Beterbiev, they're going to be having it out, obviously, which we're going to talk about later. So, really enjoyed that fight. I think that was a really good for British boxing.
I think it's the making of both fighters. I really do. One thing that I really, really enjoyed about the fight is they both gave as good as they got. When you thought Buatsi was on top, back came Azeez. When you thought Azeez was on top, back came Buatsi. And it just goes to show that that's why both fighters were undefeated at the time. Both highly skilled operators who, maybe Buatsi probably does move to that next level, but Dan Azeez isn't far off that level either.
Really, some really good fights out there for Azeez. He wasn't the victor, but
I really enjoyed the fight. Like I said, both fighters just gave as good as they got. It wasn't a one-sided beatdown. Okay, Buatsi scored 2 knockdowns in round 11. I had one of those knockdowns as a slip, not both. And I think kind of that 11th round was sort of the difference maker. I don't think there was much in it between both fighters. Every round, in my opinion, was super close. Really, really tough to score. But I do think Buatsi landed the cleaner shots. I think he landed the more deadlier punches. Listen, exactly just what you said. We're hoping that this is the making of him now. We're hoping that it does push him onto the next level. Does it get him a fight with and Anthony Yarde. There's a fight with a Callum Smith. It was a really, really good fight. Dan Azeez is in that mix as well, wrong. Don't get it twisted. Dan Azeez, in my opinion, is a very, very good fighter. You know, and he's only gone and lost to a former Olympian in Josh Buatsi. You know, he doesn't have to go on a rebuilding phase. He doesn't need a warm-up or a 10-rounder. You know, he needs to stay in this kind of mix right now. I don't see Buatsi fighting Bivol or Beterbiev anytime soon.
No.
There's a lot of talk about Buatsi versus Yarde. I think Buatsi versus Callum Smith is the number one fight domestically in the division right now. And the reason being because Callum Smith's a former world champion, Josh Buatsi's undefeated, and he is a British and Commonwealth light heavyweight champion right now. Got nothing against Anthony Yarde, very good fighter. I do think he'll win a world title, but he's lost 2 world title fights and he's lost 3 fights in total. I'm not slagging Anthony Yarde off. You know, I'm a big fan of Anthony Yarde. I just think, in my opinion, right now, number 1, number 2 British domestic wise is Callum Smith and Josh Buatsi. And that's the fight I would like to see, and potentially maybe even see that on a Saudi card. But that remains to be seen. But what
can I be a matchmaker for Dan Azeez?
Go for it.
Lyndon Arthur.
Good fight. You know what? Dan Azeez, Anthony Yarde. Why not? There's so many good fighters in this mix right now.
So I think we're very sport for choice with British, that division, light heavyweight. So, no. I think, no, they didn't discredit themselves. They both, I mean, Dan Azeez, I've got a thing for Dan Azeez that he's done it the hard way. You know, you like that sort of fighter, don't you? The working your way up the ranks, kind of doing the small
the Southern area, the English, the British, the Commonwealth, the European. He's just got one more belt to win, and then he's won everything.
Yeah, you know, I felt for him, man. I was like, this guy has put his heart into, you know, and you know, I love that he pays homage to Marvin Hagler. That's obviously that's another thing I like about him, and you know, I wish him all the best. And you know, there's obviously he's got a career. You know, he's 34 years of age, so hopefully he'll be making some good paydays, you know, in the next few fights.
Dan Azeez will definitely come again, but it's onto bigger and better things for Josh Buatsi. Great fight and a great advert for British boxing. Also on that card, wins for Adam Azim, who retained his European title, and of course another win for the flamboyant Ben Whittaker. We talk about Adam Azim. Yeah, obviously he received a lot of criticism for the celebration, and it did turn out in the end that his opponent Enoch Poulsen dislocated his shoulder. But we can't obviously look too much in towards the celebration and the dislocated shoulder. We can only talk about what we saw of Adam Azim. Ron, the more we're seeing of Adam Azim, are you getting excited, or do you think maybe there's something still missing that's going to make you sort of think, yep, this kid is going to be the face of British boxing one day?
Technically, he's sound. You know, he's never been, you know, he's never shown that vulnerability. You know, he's come through all its tests, and he's 21 years of age. You know, let's not forget that. You know, 11 fights now, 11 wins. He's got a good knockout ratio. He was in with Fan Yan. That was a good test for him as well. When he won the European title, I can't remember the gentleman's name that he beat. And obviously Poulsen, undefeated fighter.
Former European champion.
Former European who didn't lose his title in the ring. So take nothing away from him. That was a good performance. Yes, 5 rounds in, but Azim looked comfortable. You know, he was out punching him out. He was beating him to the punch every time, and he moved really well, listening to the advice. I was listening to the McGuigans on the side, like, come on, get him. You know, like the timing was right. And I think he mentioned it at the end, you know, that he was just getting into his rhythm. He wanted to put him out there. And I like the bit of brashness now. He's kind of building up his cockiness where he said to him, oh, that's where I'm going to finish you, you know, pointing to his stomach. I'm going to give you a body shot there. And in regards to, I think that's a bit of naivety and a bit of youthfulness, you know, eagerness to celebrate that. That's his trademark, you know, kind of celebration, isn't it? You know, the flip. I think he looked back, he'll probably thinking, you know, maybe just make sure he's okay first, then I could do the flip. Or, you know, I take nothing away from the performance, you know, for a kid of his age and someone of his experience, you know, job well done.
Yeah, you know, as you said, he was pretty comfortable before the dislocated shoulder. I had him winning every round. Okay, Poulsen goes down with a dislocated shoulder, but before the dislocated shoulder, he did absolutely nothing. There's a lot of questions being asked about Adam Azim. What do you do with him next? Well, he's fought at European level twice. He won the title by knockout, and this guy Paulson didn't show anything before his injury. Dalton Smith, Harlem Eubank, they're two fights that I would be really interested to see. When you speak to Adam Azim, he talks about wanting to challenge for a world title. He talks about fighting the likes of the Tank Davises, the Camboses, the Lomachenkos. I just think that's a step way too soon. I mean, Sky Sports and Boxer are targeting him to become a world champion by the end of this year. I honestly think that's a very, very bold move because the experience you get fighting at British level, European level is one thing, but when you step up to the elite level, it's a complete different game. So, you know, if I'm Sky Sports and Boxer right now, I'm targeting a Dalton Smith, or I'm even looking at potentially Harlem Eubank. They are two good domestic fights. You know, you've got 3 undefeated fighters there. You'll know which one is ready to move up to that level, the next level. But listen, fair play to him. You know, as you said, he looked very comfortable. He didn't seem troubled. Technically, he's very good. You know, fans want to see more knockouts. Yes, that will come in time. But 11 fights in, still relatively very young, European champion, undefeated. He's getting better and better. But having said that, you're going to know more about this kid when someone tries sticking it on him. So there are bigger tests out there. There are better tests out there. So only time will tell. Ben Whittaker, the showman of boxing, a very, very good performance on Saturday night with another good win, another knockout win. But there's a lot of people, Ron, that are not happy with the showboating, the sort of dancing, the twisted punches that he's doing. I mean, have we got to see more boxing and less showboating, Ron, or are you on board with this Ben Whittaker sort of train right now?
I mean, the referee was impressed. There was someone on the side of the ring. I mean, the commentator mentioned it was the British Board of Boxing Control or something. So they were up in arms about Ben Whittaker's antics. Look, man, you know, it's boxing, you know, and, you know, if he feels he can do that and get away with it, good luck to him, you know what I mean? Like, I think when he steps up those levels, like, look, it happened with Nazim Mohammed, right? That's who he's paying homage to. When
but Ron, I'm not being funny or anything. Nazim Mohammed done it all of his career and got found out once. Come on, Ron.
No, but look, when he went over to the States and he fought the like of Augie Sanchez, he fought the likes of, oh God, who am I thinking of?
Kelly.
Kevin Kelly, and you know, he got dropped. He got put on his ass. And look, you know, no disrespect to Nazim Mohammed, but he had that power. He had that knockout punch that got him out of trouble, and you know, and Ben Whittaker is, I mean, is Khalid Grandia. What was his record? He's got more defeats than his wins. So, you know, you've got to put it into perspective that he's getting away with it right now. But, you know, Boxer needs to kind of think about matchmaking him more challenging fights where he's not having to do that as much, where he's having to think, shit, this guy can punch back if I get this horribly wrong, you know, or someone who's a lot quicker reflexes or a lot more, you know, boxing smarts about him, you know, that's going to make him pay for switching off for a second like that.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I mean, you know, there is going to be someone out there that's going to, at some point, catch on to this showboating and fancy punches, and likelihood is he might end up on his arse like Nazim Mohammed did a few times. That I do agree with you. But, I mean, look, prior to Saturday night, I wasn't a fan of it. But when you watch him close up here, one thing I didn't see is that it actually pays off most of the time.
Yeah.
And his defensive skills looked really good on Saturday night. You know, he done the sort of the rope-a-dope sort of neck type of thing. So, you know, listen, there will be bigger tests out there. There will be better tests out there. There will be someone that is going to ask questions of him. But I guess we just have to accept it and get on the ride, get on the train now, get on the hype train with him. You know, he is being considered the future of British boxing. You know, we know that your Furies, your Joshuas, you know, these big fighters, they haven't got long left. So we've got to start looking at these guys as not as, oh, well, I don't really fancy it. No, this is the future of boxing, Ron. Your Adam Azeems, your Ben Whittakers, you know, they're flamboyant, you know,
as
they've
we
got a bit of
said,
arrogance in them, and so what? We just
yeah,
have to
he's in an
accept it.
exciting division. Let's not forget that.
Ex-
You know,
And do you know what, Ron? Do you know what? I interviewed him on
yes, you
Fight
did,
Week,
yeah.
He said that he would fight Buatsi and Azeez next. You gotta love the confidence. Okay, it's a bit of a big step up, you know, but with him with him having that mindset, just goes to show you, he's not going to be one of those fighters that's going to fuck around and, you know, long out fights. And he's going to give the fans the fights they want to see. Give him a couple of more fights, and I reckon they'll step him up. But
I hope
listen,
Boxer plays the matchmaking right next fight, not another glorified journeyman or someone who's going to test his chin, you know, not
Ron,
allow him that comfortable, you know, to do his twirls or make him pay for it when he does do that. So,
Ron, when you said to me, when we discussed about Saudi working with Matchroom and Queensberry, and you said to me, "Oh, how come Sky Sports and Boxer hasn't got a piece of that pie yet?" I'm going to give you my answer now, yeah, because they're not bothered about the money. They're not bothered about, you know, being in the spotlight. One, Sky Sports and Boxer have been around for a very, very long time, and two, they are well and truly focusing on their future. Okay, you've seen it with the main event, and you've seen it with the two co-main events. Sky Sports and Boxer don't need Saudi Arabia. I truly believe that now after what I've seen. I've covered two of their shows so far this year. They are more concerned about their future. And do you know what? Adam Azim, Ben Whittaker, Fran Hennessey, Josh Buatsi, Caroline Dubois, Hassan Azim,
Fabio
Wardley. In 18 months' time, Ron, these guys are going to be bigger. They're going to have bigger followings, and Sky Sports is going to be even more exciting. It's exciting now, but I'm telling you now, I can see what Sky Sports and Boxer are trying to do. They're going to get bigger, and they're going to get way better as well as time goes on. Conor Benn fought on Saturday night as well, but it's obviously daytime in Vegas, the time he fought, and he got 12 rounds under the bank. He beat Peter Dobson. I mean, I've watched the fight. What did you make of the fight, Ron? And more importantly, what did you make of Conor Benn's performance?
I mean, people were expecting it to be a walkover, maybe a stoppage, but Peter Dobson turned up. You know, he gave a good. I think he did. Yeah, I think he did. He turned up, and you know, it wasn't
in moments, Ron. In moments.
In moments, but it wasn't what everyone was expecting, that Conor Benn was going to stop him early doors and get him out of there. I think he needed that tough, he needs those rounds. He needs those kind of grueling rounds, and it was his first time is it the first time in the US or second time in the US now? I can't remember. Because clearly he can't fight in the UK, so he's got this issue here. But yeah, I mean, like, now, what did he gain out of that? Does that show he's ready for the big boys in the 147 division?
Well, I obviously need to give my take on the fight. Peter Dobson, in moments, looked like a decent opponent. Conor Benn, I thought the first few rounds swung very wildly, and didn't connect. He had a few good rounds. If he gets his timing right, he's going to be a big puncher, no doubt about it. I would have liked to have seen a bit more composure for Conor Benn on Saturday night. I just thought he looked a bit too eager for the knockout. But I think the biggest positive is it's 12 rounds in the bank. He's not fought much the last few years because of the problems outside of the ring. Now the big question is, who's next? And anybody and everybody is getting called out, from Chris Eubank Jr., who's supposedly 185 pounds in weight right now, to Jerron Boots Ennis, to Devin Haney, to Terence Crawford, to Gervonta Tank Davis. Adrian Broner's been mentioned. I mean, like, seriously, Eddie Hearn has got to get the next move right with this kid. You know, the backlash that he suffered since the failed drugs test is one thing, but Eddie Hearn said it now. The next fight is going to be a huge fight. It's not going to be no warm-up fight. It's not going to be no assured victory for us. The next fight we want is a big name, and it's I don't think it'll be Eubank Jr. It's hard to tell because they're targeting all the top names from lightweight to middleweight. It's just ridiculous how everybody's supposedly been getting called out. He wants to fight Devin Haney. He's Teofimo Lopez. I really can't what is it? What direction are they going in with Conor Benn right now, Ron? Where are they going with him?
That's the problem. He has to go. He has to fight abroad at the moment, unless they are able to resolve his situation. In the UK, he makes more money. He attracts bigger fights. But that's his problem. He's kind of in nowhere land kind of thing. Kind of obviously the US. Yes, I did see Devin Haney's dad kind of having a chat with him after the fight. Was it? So I mean, these are all rumors for now. They all got their own trajectories and their own kind of targets. I think so. I just think Conor Benn's in a no man's land at the moment unless at the end pulls off that next big fight that he's been promising. So he's had 2 fights on the road now. Is it 2 fights that he's had since his ban finished? So I just hope so for his career. Otherwise, I mean, that Chris Eubank. You forgot Kell Brook. That fight's been obviously touted as well, but.
Well, look, Ron. I mean, I just think that right now it's all up in limbo right now. I mean, what weight is he even targeting to become a world champion at? I mean, where does his future lie in terms of who he's going to take on next? I think Eddie Hearn needs to make a plan. I don't think the Eubank Jr. fight's going to happen. I can't see that fight happening for a very long time. Especially if what Senior said is correct, and he is if Eubank Jr. is 185 pounds in weight right now, which I don't really think is true. I mean, you can say what you want about Chris Eubank Jr. He has always got himself into top shape. He's never once missed weight. He's always looked after himself. I mean, you mentioned Josh Kelly as well, Kell Brook as well. That's another fight. Does Kell Brook need that fight? Maybe not. Does Kell Brook need to fight again? Probably not. Chris Eubank Senior said his nephew, Harlem Eubank. That's a fight that we talked about. I mean, if you're going to keep him at 147, which is his natural weight, then you have got to be looking at some point for him to go in there with the likes of the Boots Ennis's, the Terence Crawfords, and even maybe at 154 pounds. I just don't know what you do with him next. I mean, he wants to fight everybody right now. The Devin Haney fight is a good fight, but he's super lightweight world champion. One fight I do like though, Ron, yeah, and that's obviously depends on if he wins his next fight, is a Josh Taylor fight. I really like that fight. I think Josh Taylor's future belongs at 147 pounds. I like the idea of him fighting Josh Taylor. It's a good fight, 2 good domestic fighters. We've got a former undisputed champion. We've sort of got the guy that's sort of coming up right now.
Surely Josh Taylor's not going to walk away from Catterall again.
No, he's not. That's why I said one. If Josh Taylor beats,
just thinking no, because he did that last time and it clearly backfired.
He didn't run. He got an injury. Look, that fight is
no. Just, of course, he went. Obviously, he fought against Teofimo. Good name, made probably good money from that fight as well. But
at the end of the day, I like the idea of the Josh Taylor fight.
Over Catterall?
Well, no, Josh Taylor is going to fight Jack Catterall. That's why I said it.
No. Would you pick? Okay, if you had a choice of Josh Taylor versus Conor Benn or Josh Taylor versus Catterall, which one would you go?
No, Taylor Catterall. We need to see.
Thank you.
We need to see that sort of script. Sorry, that chapter finished now. That's the fight we want to see next. But I want to stick on something, and I want to stick on the interviews that Chris Senior did. Done one with IFL. Shout out to IFL. And he done one with TalkSport. Shout out to TalkSport. What was said? I don't want to go too much into the comments, but what did you make of him saying that when my son was with me, he was an absolute killer? You've seen it in the performances against Yildirim, and you've seen it in the
Blackwell
performances against Nick Blackwell. But he says that when he was working with his father, he was a killer, but he forgot to mention that he lost to George Groves and he lost to Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, are you worried for Chris Senior's health right now, or do you think most of what he said is pretty much true?
No, I don't. I don't. I just think he's kind of picking and choosing what part of he wants to focus on and take the plaudits. And yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It's a very strange interview. Um, he was really kind of trying to sell the Harlem fight, and he said Sky Sports is where it is because of him. He built on Matchroom. So I take his comments with a pinch of salt, but he's entertaining. Whatever he's doing, people are watching him.
He's the one guy that's on the top of my list that I really want to interview in 2024. I'm a massive
Yeah.
fan. I just love his presence. But
I love how these days he's speaking the Queen's English and then he'll drop the Jamaican Yardie accent in between.
but one thing, right? And I'm not gonna slag off TalkSport. I'm definitely not gonna slag off Kugan Cassius because Kugan is the king of boxing reporting and he's a guy that I actually look up to and a guy that I've got a lot of pride and respect for. But I would have liked to have seen them challenge Chris Senior and say, "But hold on a second, when he was with you, he lost to George Groves, he lost to Billy Joe Saunders. That was under your watch." And you sit there and you slag off Liam Swift because of his surname, but you seem to forget Liam's a former world champion and he did knock out your son as well. So surely these guys have got to start questioning those defeats whilst he was under Chris Senior's watch. Am I right or wrong?
Agreed. I mean, when he was under his kind of tutelage, he mentioned that this man's going to be better than Floyd Mayweather, and look, that didn't happen under obviously Senior when he was, he had him under his belt, but something's gone really sour in that relationship. I'd love to be in that fly in the wall when it's just them two. None of this circus, none of this media attention. Just want to know what do they talk about? What the conversations are. And
I'm going to share a joke with you, and only me and you know the meaning behind it. It had fuck all on the handbags in Belfast, or the rumble in the garden. No, but I agree with you when you say that he talks about the Queen's English and then he puts on the Rastafarian accent,
Jamaican Yardie accent, yeah.
And then he says about Tyson Fury didn't get invited to see the Queen because of his language, but then he's talking in his Rastafarian Yardie accent. I mean, look, come on, look, you're an absolute living legend of British boxing, and you've got a point where you say that Sky went to Barry Hearn because of me. He did sort of knock that door down for Barry, but don't take away somebody else's hard work. I mean, they built you up as well. I mean, they gave you the platform to box on. I just think, look, he's involved working with Harlem. He wants the Harlem Eubank versus Conor Benn fight. Yeah, two undefeated fighters. It's a fight that I wouldn't mind seeing. But I agree with you. Something has gone wrong in that relationship. But don't make out to be that you took your son to these massive heights where he was untouchable in boxing, because he did lose twice under Chris Senior's watch. But anyway, it is a relationship that has gone wrong. But you're a father, I'm a father. I hope that relationship can be rebuilt. And till this day, I still hope Chris Eubank Senior does win a world title and he can share that success with his father, because we're talking about we're talking about a boxing legend, one of my favorite fighters to come out of Britain. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Listen, regardless what your opinion of Chris Eubank Jr. is, he's very exciting and he's going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink in. And Chris Senior did say one thing, and I agree with it. The fight next for Chris Senior should be Chris Jr. has to be good Canelo. That's a fight I want to see. I want to see Eubank Jr. fight Canelo. Go up to 168 pounds and fight Canelo Alvarez, because that's one guy, right, that will turn up and that will genuinely believes he can knock out Canelo Alvarez and he will have a go. As he said it many years on our podcast, and now I agree with him. That's the fight I want to see next for Chris Eubank Jr. Him fight Canelo. If it's not Canelo, Jaime Munguia. If it's not Jaime Munguia, Caleb Plant. A Billy Joe Saunders rematch. Kell Brook fight? Yeah, why not? I don't want to see the Conor Benn fight. I want to see Eubank Jr. in the biggest and best fights possible. Ron, it also got announced to us on the Joshua Buatsi Dan Azeez fight night that Fabio Wardley defends his British crown, his heavyweight crown, against Fraser, Clarke, on March the 31st at the O2 Arena in London. Very, very good fight. And again, another good fight, which I'm pretty sure is going to be another good Sky Sports and Boxer card. Ron, what do you make of the announcement? And is that the next fight you were hoping for Fabio Wardley?
I'm surprised. I think finally Boxer have changed their mind. I mean, after what happened with the purse bids the last time around, Fabio's kind of taunt there. You're still not ready for me. I like Fabio. He's kind of, building up his stock at the moment. I mean, that win against David Adelaide in Saudi did him really, kind of really projected him up further up the rankings in the British heavyweight rankings. Proud British champion. I just think he'll have too much for so Fabio will have too much for Fraser, but it's a good domestic tear up. You never know what might happen on the night. So yeah, I'll look forward to watching it.
Well, Fraser Clarke's obviously got the amateur background, so he's got the experience. But as you said, you reckon Fabio's going to have too much for Fraser Clarke on Fight Night. That could be the case. However, there's a point I'd like to make. I don't even think Fabio's had that fight where he's been tested yet. And it's a big move to put him in with Fabio Wardley. I believe he's had, 6, 7, 8 fights? I'm not too sure. So
I mean, I disagree. I think he's been in some good fighters. I mean, he's been with the British level, at the British level. David Adelaide was a good fight. That was a good bit.
No, I'm talking about Fraser Clarke. I'm not talking about Fabio.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry, I was thinking. Sorry. I was thinking
we'll just take out your wages. But anyway, look, what I was trying to say.
Oh, Fraser Clarke. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, he doesn't. I can't think of anyone that stands out to me against building up his career against journeymen. So getting
it's
him.
It's a big move. It's a very, very
very
big
bold move. I would say it's a bold move by from the stance that they took from not, kind of exiting the purse talks to now actually we've changed our mind. We'd fancy a bit of that. I hope it's something that they've seen improvements or kind of seen something that then actually we can win this fight.
Well, listen, I mean, Fraser Clarke could surprise us all come March 31st. He could turn out and do a number on Fabio Wardley. Having said that, look, I know Fraser's got the Olympic pedigree and the amateur background. But one thing I've noticed about Fabio Wardley, and I go back to the Nathan Gorman fight, he looked like he was in trouble. And it's when he's receiving punishment, he sort of turns it on. When he's on the end of a few punches, that's when he really comes to light. And I'd be very surprised this fight goes beyond 5 rounds. I just think this is going to be a barn fest. I think these two are just going to go at it. I was at ringside and saw the face off, and you could just see the way they were looking at each other and the way that they were talking to each other. That this fight has got both fighters have got very nasty intentions come fight night.
Let me ask you a question in regards to that. Who's got more to lose?
Well, Fabio Wardley is not a young fighter. Sorry, Fraser Clarke's not a young fighter.
How old is Fabio? Fabio's in his 20s, mid to late 20s?
I believe so.
26, 27, I'd say?
Yeah. At the age Fraser Clarke's in right now, can you really afford to rebuild? Possibly not. I believe Joe Joyce won the Commonwealth in his 4th or 5th fight, because obviously him being at a certain age where he's come out of the Olympics and he's had to push on in his career. It's a big test, but who's got more to lose? It's definitely Fraser Clarke. It's a tough ask, man, because Fabio Wardley's a fighter that's just getting better and better. But having said that, it's a fight I'm really looking forward to. Does it sell out the O2 Arena though?
Depends on the undercard. Not that alone. No. It's a good fight. I'll tune in to watch it, but would I go and pay a ticket for it? Not necessarily, unless Boxer puts on another good show. I do like, they got these young fighters. They're trying to keep them busy. It was not so long ago Adam Azim had his last fight before this, obviously defending his European title. So could they get him back on the card? Ben Whittaker obviously clearly needs fights at this point in his career as well. Caroline Dubois came through her performance. So I guess you can get the whole gang back together again on that same night. So
well, Turkey Al Sheikh made a very interesting statement. He said that he's hoping to have the undisputed fight between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev on the same night as the Queensberry versus Matchroom undercard. So you'd have 5 fights where it's Queensberry versus Matchroom, and then you got an undisputed clash.
That's in June, isn't it?
Yeah, and the magnitude of that card just got bigger and better, and I do believe that's what's going to happen. So you imagine that, fight 1 to 5. It's this team needs to win, stay in.
When's that being announced? The Queensberry. Do we know? Is there any rumors? Did you hear anything in the?
From what I'm hearing, that's going to be announced in the AJ versus Ngannou on the card. They also released a few rules and stipulations. Apparently, they're going to bring in like a transfer window where both sets of promoters can sign fighters to fight for their promotional brand just for that card. So, it's kind of like the bloody transfer deadline day, the way they're going on about it. But it's very interesting because, like I said, you're going to be watching the first 5 fights, knowing that whoever gets the most victories wins the bragging rights, and then after that you've got an undisputed fight between 2 of the best fighters in the world right now. So hats off again to Saudi, Ron. They really are delivering right now.
Where's the US in all of this? They kind of,
what do you mean with the US?
The promotion companies, aren't they feeling a little bit cold, being left out here? The British promotional companies like obviously Matchroom and Queensberry kind of getting all the limelight, getting all the eyes on their fighters. I'd love to see American fighters on that, eventually on these undercards as well.
Well, Jared Anderson.
You don't feel they're getting left behind? These Showtimes and all these broadcasters and.
Not really, Ron, because the show goes on, doesn't it? Obviously Showtime are done now. Top Rank will still carry on going because they work closely with Sky Sports. So I would like to see.
You reckon they'll make them signings? Go to Top Rank and sign a few.
Well, look. Obviously we mentioned about the so-called transfer thing that could potentially go on. Who runs Top Rank? Bob Arman. Who does he work closely with? Frank Warren. Oh, do you know what, Bob? Send over Jared Anderson to me on loan if you don't mind. I want to represent Queensberry. It could happen, but yeah. But look, back to the point of obviously.
You know what we'll do? I think I've got an idea for a pod. Let's do a fantasy. We'll have to do a fantasy kind of Matchroom versus one of those kind of shows.
All right, no problem. Well, let's finish this pod first, innit?
Yeah.
A great idea, though, and I like what you're getting onto here. But Bivol Beterbiev, simple and easy fight to make in my mind. Now, I said something to Cameo the other day, right? And I said that, look, don't get me wrong, both phenomenally, technically brilliant fighters, but they're not big draws in boxing, if you know what I mean, in terms of with the public, and they're not like controversial or anything. So, and I'm not taking nothing away from them as boxers, brilliant boxers, but the fact that they're so sort of laid back and they're easygoing characters, it's a simple fight to make, right, Ron?
Yeah, it's the only fight to make right now in that division, because they're clearly heads and shoulders above everyone else. So, but you're right. They're not loudmouth. They're not brash. They're not, they're brutal. Look, watching Beterbiev versus Callum Smith, he was brutal. And he was quite humble after the fight as well. That doesn't grab a lot of kind of media attention. He just went about his business. Bivol as well, he came through his last fight against Lindenhofer. Fast did what he had to do. So I just hope that gets finalized. Has that been confirmed? Is that locked in?
I think it's going in the right direction right now, because you've got the main man who's just bashing everybody's heads together and giving us all the fights we want. Just a shame we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for Fury versus Usyk. Ron, you got anything else you want to add, mate?
Just on that undercard, Caroline Dubois came through.
Yeah.
She's one fight probably closer to a world title shot.
Mm-hmm.
So, all credit to her. Really interesting to see Fran Hennessey coming through as well with her little dance moves. You know, we had ring entrances, which are
She's
quite
calling
memorable.
out Ebony Bridges and Shannon Courtney next.
Play to her,
Yeah.
man. What is she, 18, 19?
Mhm.
She's, you know.
Yeah, but Ron, she's a baby though. She's a baby, and
Yeah.
I think they need to take their time with her. Obviously, she's looked after by Bradley Skeet, one of the nicest guys you meet in boxing. She's got that bit of
I
swagger
think
about her.
she's got an old man who's gonna, you know, obviously have a
Hennessey.
say. Yeah, I mean, like he's gonna have a say on how her career is managed, and you know, and who better do you want than that?
No, I agree, Ron, but at the same time, look, she's only had 4 fights. I mean,
Oh no! I'm not. I'm saying pace yourself, man. You know,
exactly.
you've got a long, successful career ahead of you. You know, get these ugly fights in, and
I mean, you know what, Ron? Shame on you. You'd do anything to see Ebony Bridges out another way in, wouldn't you? Absolute shame on you, mate.
You know what? What's happening with talking of Shannon Courtney? You know, what's happened with her? You know, any idea what's going on with her? Is she fighting?
She's at the Rotunda gym in Liverpool right now. She's trying to rebuild her career. She's a good fighter. She's a former world champion.
She's had a few injuries.
She's working closely with the Smiths, which is a really good move. Just like Charlie Edwards is right now. You know, fingers crossed. Hopefully, we can see her back in the ring. But you know what?
I'd like to see that rematch with her and Ebony Bridges.
Yeah, but you got to take your hats off to women's boxing right now. I mean, it really is. You know, it's on a great it's on a great path right now. The last 2 years for women's boxing.
Any announcement on next fight for Katie Taylor? Or
no,
is that...
no. I mean, I think there's talks of Chantel Cameron free. I like the Amanda Serrano rematch. Obviously, Savannah Marshall. What does she do next? Is she really going to go ahead with
Shields as well? What's she doing?
Yeah, I mean, do we make Shields Marshall too? I mean, I spoke to Ben Shalom at the Jonas May undercard and on like a sort of social media clip with him. I asked him the 5 fights you want to make for Sky Sports and Boxer in 2024, and he said Shields Marshall 2 is one of them. So, you know, hopefully that's a fight we get next. What do you do next with Natasha Jonas? You know, women's boxing, especially some of the British fighters we've got here right now. Such a good time for British boxing, you know. And you know what really did it for me, right? Where you really knew British women's boxing was on the map is when you had the Shields Marshall card and it was an all women's card. That for me showed why women's boxing is where it is right now. You got none of this messing around, none of this. Oh, I need a few warm up fights. You know, women fighters are fighting 4 or 5 fights and they're fighting for world titles. That just goes to show you women's boxing right now, man. It's just it makes the whole of the sport of boxing a more simple sport.
Okay, right. Let me ask you one last question. Who's gonna be the breakout fighter this year? You know, who's 2024? Who's gonna be our name on our lips? Who do you think is gonna make a big impression this year?
Hamza Shiraz fights this weekend. I think this is going to be the year of Hamza Shiraz.
You're going for a big year for him?
Yeah, I think this is going to be Hamza Shiraz's year.
What do you predict? Like a world title?
I think a world title. I think he wins on Saturday night, and I think he challenges Janibek for the world title next. I think he becomes world champion. I just got a feeling Hamza Shiraz is going to do something big this year. Who else is there? Hamza Shiraz for me. Fran Hennessey, I really like the look of her. The swagger makes me really confident about her. There's something about her.
For me, I'd say I want big things to come out from Moses Itoma.
Yeah, another good prospect.
Yeah, and internationally, Jared Anderson. I hope he comes on, you know, in his career.
Another name I'm going to put in. I think Amma Williams. He fought on Saturday night. He won. I think that kid could be one of the next big faces from America. I really like Amma Williams. I think his quality.
Talking of the undercard, yeah, Johnny Fisher.
Great win for Johnny Fisher. Round 1 knockout. How many fans did he take with him to Vegas as well?
Romford Bull, man. We had the pleasure of going down to Romford, didn't we? And to see him train up there.
Well, here's a question for you, Ron. Right now that we're on the topic with the Romford Bull. I mean, he's won the southern area. He's just got his US debut out the way. Do you think he's maybe looking at the winner of Wardley versus Clarke?
Too early for his career at this
No,
very
come
moment.
on.
Too early for him, man. Like, they've got a lot more experience in the tank. Someone like Fabio Wardley is, he's been around for a lot longer. Which, I mean,
But
there's...
you've got it at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not...
feed him.
Don't knock it. I mean, there's other potential fights there if you really wanted to kind of put him in with.
Nathan Gorman?
You know what?
David Adelaide?
David Adelaide, Dave Allen, if he's still out. David Adelaide is a good one as well. Jamie TKV is one.
That's another good fight.
Who's come back from a defeat, so he looked decent in his fight. Moses Itoma, if you really want to go down that way, but I think they've got big plans for him. So, he's a heavyweight boxing, man. So you want them to be fighting for something. That's what you want, the British boxing, for a British title or a Southern area. So good stuff. Well done, Johnny Fisher, man. So it was really good seeing him up and close. Looked great on the pads when we saw him. So wish him all the best in his future fights.
Ron, we're going to end this podcast with our final topic. We're going to pay tribute to Carl Weathers, who sadly lost his life last week. Carl Weathers, better known as Apollo Creed, who starred in Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4. It was only about, what was it? I think it was the last podcast where your quick fire question was, what would your nickname be if he was a boxer? And then you asked me, how many did Apollo Creed have for his fight with Ivan Drago? And listen,
name him. God, let's see if you can name him.
The Master of Disaster, the King of Sting, the one, the only Apollo Creed. I can't remember what the rest were.
Was it the Mount of Monte Cristo? Or the
yeah. And Rocky goes, you think you got enough nicknames there, Apollo? But listen, firstly, thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And secondly, Ron,
so many iconic kind of moments in the Rocky franchise that they had. And you know what? I've been on Instagram and, I can't help but share those moments there. I think the best one was where he brings Rocky to his gym.
Yeah.
In Rocky 3. And the whole gym.
They've all got that look in their eye. That's what he's trying to say. We had that look when we were younger.
Yeah. That was a brilliant moment. That was, what's the matter with you? There is no tomorrow.
My favorite moment has got to be when he does the press conference with Ivan Drago, and he goes, I've been the best, and I've beat the best, and I've retired more men in Social Security. He just, if you kind of think about it, right, his character in those Rocky movies, all of his charisma was very similar to Muhammad Ali.
It was based on Ali. I think that was they were trying to pay, obviously, homage to him, Ali, and his cockiness and his. I mean, look, Tyson Fury did a kind of an impersonation of him as well. Didn't he come out with the American hat and that cloak as with it?
The Tom Shorts fight. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, back off the back of his name, we've got a franchise Creed. So,
do you know what, Ron? Right, I think. Right, look. I mean, you were born in 85, 86? 84. All right, okay. You old bastard. I was born in 89, right? But at least in our time, right, growing up, one of the favorite movies for us was always going to be the Rocky movies. And I just think kids these days, right, the ones that are growing up slowly, the young teenagers don't realize just how precious those movies are to people like me and you. And with me having a young son, right, I want him to watch the Rockies. I want him to watch the Rambos, the Police Academies, all these classic movies. I want my son to watch. But that's just the thing with kids these days. They don't realize a classic when it's hitting them point blank in the face. A classic never dies, Ron. But if you had a moment with Carl Weathers, right, what would you ask Carl Weathers?
I ask him. I mean, I just wanted to know. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, like that moment when he got selected as the antagonist, and against Rocky, and how that moment came about, because his background was as an American footballer, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
initially they had someone else in mind. Sylvester Stallone had what's his name? He's an actual boxer. I forgot his name. It's going to come to me, but he hit too hard. I think they were sparring, but then obviously Apollo Creed or Carl Weathers walked in, and his charisma, his charm, it was straight away, this guy's perfect for the role. Yeah, I'd just love to know his thoughts on the filming of such a great boxing movie that made us fall in love with this sport. Talk to us about that, the training montages, the fight scenes, the great kind of quotes that he had. I mean, you were talking about quotes earlier. The one that he had with Burt
Reynolds.
No, Paulie.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. He's like, Paulie makes a comment. He goes, "Who the hell's that? Is that Al Capone?"
Who's that, Al Capone?
That'd be something I'd love to kind of just be like.
I'd have loved to have asked him, like, how did you mold yourself into sort of the guy? Because it must have not been an easy role. I mean, playing the guy that's the fighter of Rocky's opponent for those first two.
The antagonist,
first two movies.
He's the antagonist. He's the one that you wanted him to lose, and
yeah. And do you know what? When you look
and
at
I think I love that in Rocky 3, you start liking him again, and then Rocky 4, obviously, you have this affinity for him, thinking, yeah, he's my favorite. Then he meets his demise against Ivan Drago in the movie.
And do you know what, Ron? When you look at boxing movies in a whole, look at Jake Gyllenhaal, how well he played his role in Southpaw. Look at Michael B. Jordan, how well he plays his role. And when you look at sort of scenes of when they're filming, it does not look easy at all playing the role as a boxer. But yeah, listen, tragic news to hear the passing of Carl Weathers. May he rest in peace. And once again, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Ron, we're going to wrap it up, mate. It's been a long podcast, but I'm glad we've had a lot to talk about. And obviously, hopefully we continue next week. We've got Hamza Shiraz fighting Liam Williams this weekend as well. We've also got a next-gen Matchroom undercard at the Indigo at the O2 Arena. So yeah, hopefully there's a few more topics to discuss on Pod 73. Thank you for your time as always, Ron. An absolute pleasure. And to the viewers out there, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for future Lights Out boxing content notifications. And if you need representation in the court, well, we are proudly sponsored by the one and only Spartans Law. Their website link is below in the description. To listen to this podcast on any of the audio platforms, links are below in the description. Thank you very much, people, for listening to podcast 72 of the Lights Out Boxing podcast.